What's up, everybody, and welcome back to the channel to another episode of Seahawks Now, your home for all things daily Seahawks news, rumors, and updates. If you guys aren't subscribed, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below and hit the bell for notifications so you never miss another breaking news alert about the Seahawks. Well, guys, today we have some big draft news to talk about, specifically looking at the quarterbacks that the Seahawks could potentially be in the market for this offseason. Now, obviously, we don't know for a fact that the Seahawks are going to be drafting a quarterback. According to Mike McDonald, they are okay with Geno Smith again as their starter next year, but it's never a bad thing to speculate about because eventually this team is going to need to draft a new quarterback, right? We know this. Eventually, they're going to have to draft somebody because Geno's not going to last forever. He's getting up there in age, about 35 now, and I think we all kind of know Sam Howell, he's not the guy, right? He's not the answer. So the Seahawks are going to be looking for a new quarterback eventually, and we have new reports that they have met with Colorado star Shedeur Sanders. If you don't know who Shedeur Sanders is, maybe you've been living under a rock because this guy is one of the most popular quarterbacks in all of college football. Massive NIL deal last year, son of primetime Deion Sanders. He played with his dad, and Buffalo's actually were very good last year. He kind of helped bring about the revival of that Colorado program. The stats, they jump off the page. They went 9-4, a 74% completion percentage. By the way, that led all of NCAA Division I quarterbacks. 168.2 passer rating, 37 touchdowns. It looks like, that's supposed to be flipped there, but 4,134 yards and 37 touchdowns. It was electric. I mean, Shedeur Sanders, absolute baller. I mean, in every aspect, he can run, he can throw, he's dynamic, he's a playmaker. I think he should be the number one overall pick. If I was an NFL team, he'd be the number one overall pick. And that begs the question, why would it be worth it for the Seahawks to meet with Shedeur Sanders? Because they don't have the number one pick. They don't have the number two pick. They don't even have the number 3 or the number 4 pick. The Seahawks have the number 18 pick. And so, from a logistical perspective, you're like, well, they are not going to get to draft Shedeur Sanders, right? Well, so we thought, but does this mean the Seahawks are seriously pondering trading up to draft Shedeur Sanders? Because we've seen teams do this before. We've seen the 49ers trade up to draft Trey Lance when they already had Jimmy Garoppolo. We've seen the Kansas City Chiefs trade up to draft Patrick Mahomes when they already had Alex Smith. So it's not necessarily unprecedented. We've seen the Dallas Cowboys do it. It's not unprecedented to see a team that already has a good quarterback to trade up to take a quarterback that they think is elite. And so, while I still wouldn't say it's likely, I would say this. If the Seahawks really love Shedeur Sanders, and if John Schneider thinks that this is the guy who can carry us into the future, then maybe they will trade up. I don't think we should rule anything out. The fact that they met with him at least means that they're interested. I don't think you would meet with a player that you're not interested in. And yeah, I think they understand. I do think the Seahawks are smart enough to understand that he's going to be a top 5 pick, probably a top 3 pick. Because if the Titans don't pick him at number 1, I think the Browns would probably pick him at number 2. Because the Browns, they are done with Deshaun Watson. And the Titans, I think the Will Levis experiment is over. I think Shedeur Sanders is the most coveted guy. But if the Seahawks are serious about trying to get in there, then maybe they are thinking, let's try to trade up. Let's try to get this guy. But The Athletic has other ideas. The Athletic is projecting the Seahawks are going to be drafting Quinn Ewers out of Texas. Quinn Ewers formerly was the number 1 rated quarterback in this draft class a couple of years ago. He's kind of slipped a little bit. His stock has fallen just a bit. More of a pocket guy. He doesn't have the legs that Shedeur Sanders has. He doesn't have the legs that a Cam Ward would have, or even a Jalen Milroe. But what Quinn Ewers does have is he has a rocket arm, and he's not going to be a first-round pick. The Athletic is projecting he will be a 4th or 5th round pick. They have him taking him in the 5th round. So how would you guys feel about this? I mean, looking at the Quinn Ewers stats, they're Again, they're good, not necessarily as good as Shedeur Sanders. I mean, you look at the less touchdowns, only 31, still good, not 37 though. The yards, 700 yards less, 3,472 yards. He had a passer rating at 149, still really good, but it's not 168.2. And then the completion percentage, massive difference. Quinn Ewers only completed 65.8% of his throws. In the NFL, that would be a pretty good mark, but normally college quarterbacks, their completion percentage is going to be better in college than it is in the NFL. But the record was good, 13-3. But then you say how much of that was on him and how much of that was on the coaching staff and the defense and the $20 million roster that Texas was playing with this year. Because Quinn Ewers, for what it's worth, as good as some of the numbers were, and as much as he won, and he did win a lot at Texas, but it felt like every other week there were fans that were calling for Arch Manning. And there was even analysis. There was even sportscasters saying the Texas Longhorns should consider starting Arch Manning in the playoffs instead of Quinn Ewers. So I think Quinn Ewers just never really had that it factor. He was always good. He was always a solid game manager. He never really made the big throws. And to be fair, they never really needed him to do that because they were so good. They were such a dominant team. But Quinn Ewers always felt like a bit of a you didn't see the special with Quinn Ewers, and I still don't. And so I do think that if you take him in the 5th round, look, it's a 5th round flyer. He can replace Sam Howell as your backup. I don't think Quinn Ewers is your long-term guy. I just don't see NFL starter written all over him. Yeah, the arm is there. The decision-making is not very good. The leadership, I think, is all right. But the accuracy is not there. The legs, he doesn't really have them. He's not really a dual threat. And I don't see that dynamic playmaking ability that we are looking for out of a quarterback in Quinn Ewers. Now, there's another quarterback that is being speculated. According to 710 Sports ESPN Seattle, Will Howard could be the future Seahawks quarterback, the national championship winning quarterback out of Ohio State, Will Howard. So how would we feel about this one? Again, Will Howard's a guy that most mock drafts are projecting he's going to be a 4th, 5th, even a 6th round pick. So despite winning the Natty, people don't really believe that Will Howard is an NFL quarterback. And I think the big theory here is that he, like many other Ohio State quarterbacks, is being carried by his receivers. Now, we've seen Ohio State quarterbacks, we've seen them fail. We have, and I don't like to call it, maybe Justin Fields will still succeed, but he wasn't great. And there have been Ohio State quarterbacks before Justin Fields who've done even worse. But you also then recently saw C.J. Stroud, who maybe you could say he was the first Ohio State quarterback in a long time that truly succeeded in the NFL. But most draft analysts seem to think that Will Howard is going to be more of the former. He's going to be more of the, solid game manager who comes from Ohio State, plays with a great roster, wins a lot of games, but in the NFL, it's not going to be as easy. And again, if you look at his stats, 35 touchdowns, 4,010 yards, 175.3 passer rating, a 73% completion percentage, and a 14-2 record. Those numbers are gaudy. I mean, that's pretty eye-popping stuff, actually. When you're looking at it, he almost had the same amount of yards as Shedeur Sanders. Granted, Will Howard played in 16 games. Shedeur Sanders played in 13 games. So take that for what it is. Shedeur Sanders put up more yards and more touchdowns and played in 3 less games. But look at the passer rating, 175.3. That's right around where Shedeur Sanders, actually better than Shedeur Sanders, was at 168. And the completion percentage at 73%, that's right behind Shedeur, who led college football at 74%. So while you could argue that Will Howard was being carried by his great receivers, and he does have the best receiving core in football. Let's put that in college football. Let's put that out there. Make that very clear. But the numbers are still very impressive. Very good passer rating, very good completion percentage, and he won. He won almost all of his games, including the biggest moments. He made some big-time throws in that national championship game. I actually would be more excited about Will Howard than I would about Quinn Ewers, because I think he's a better. I mean, as far as game managers go, if you want to call him a game manager, he's a much better game manager than Quinn Ewers because he's more accurate, better passer rating. He makes fewer mistakes. He's already playing very polished football, and I do wonder if Will Howard would turn out to be sort of like a Bo Nix or a Mac Jones type of a player who comes into the league already at an NFL starting level because of his experience, because he's, like I said, smart, doesn't make mistakes, he's mature. So I wonder if he could come into the league, not necessarily comes in and sets the league on fire, but comes in, has a solid rookie season, makes the playoffs early, but then I'm not sure how much more development there is with Will Howard, which is what we saw out of Mac Jones, right? Mac Jones never developed. He came into the league, he was good his rookie season, but teams figured him out and he couldn't develop further than that. And I think that's going to happen to Bo Nix, and I wonder if that could be kind of that archetype, right? That college quarterback, veteran guy, smart, accurate, an adult, right? He's a grown-up, doesn't make mistakes, but not necessarily too much more to develop. Maybe there's some polishing, right? I think every college quarterback still needs to be polished up, get to that NFL playbook, get to that NFL level. But some of them don't have much more developing to do, and that's what makes guys like Sanders or Cam Ward way more interesting prospects because they do have more development. Will Howard, Quinn Ewers, those guys don't necessarily have the same amount of development. Dylan Gabriel, put him in the same boat. So, again, I'd be fine with drafting Will Howard. I think he'd be a good choice. I would rather him than Quinn Ewers, but I would be very, very careful to crown him as your quarterback of the future, especially if you're taking him in the 4th round or the 5th round. I'm not saying a 3rd, 4th, 5th round guy can't be your quarterback of the future, because we have seen it work in the past. But if you look at the last 10 years, fewer and fewer quarterbacks are coming out of day 3 and late day 2, right? Back in the day, you could find a starting quarterback 5th round pretty easily. But if you look at modern day, look at the past 10 years. Russell Wilson was a 3rd round pick. Dak Prescott was a 4th round pick. Kirk Cousins was a 4th round pick. I can't think of anyone from the 5th round. Brock Purdy from the 7th round, massive anomaly. So, 4. If I'm not mistaken, there are 4 quarterbacks who were taken in the 3rd round or later who have ended up who have ended up leading teams to the playoffs. And comment down below if I'm forgetting anyone. But if I'm not mistaken, Purdy, Russ, Kirk Cousins, and Dak Prescott are the only 4. And that's since 2012. So that's a 12-year period. That's a lot of drafts. That's a lot of players. And 4 of them have had success. The rest have all not worked out. So it's hard for me to really be supportive of the idea that we're going to find our franchise quarterback in the 5th round when the chances are clearly not very good. It could happen. I'm not saying it won't happen. I'm saying let's not all get our hopes up. But guys, that's it for today's video. I want to hear your guys' thoughts. Comment down below. Do you think there's any chance the Seahawks are going to trade up for Shedeur Sanders? And if not, who would you rather the Seahawks take a flyer on, Will Howard or Quinn Ewers? Both of them maybe in the 4th, 5th round. Which would you rather the Seahawks take a flyer on? I would rather Will Howard, but I want to hear what you guys think. And as always, guys, like this video, subscribe to the channel. Thank you to FanArch for sponsoring us with this video. And as always, guys, go Seahawks.